right. It's me, Ari Dosset, or as you already know me, Rashid. I'm live today. I'm walking outside, as you can see. And in this live stream, I want to talk about this Afghanistan controversy that's going on at the moment. And for those who watch this video years later in the future, you can use this video as a historical reference. I don't mind. Anyway, I'll start at the 4-minute mark, as I always do. This is not StreamYard, so I start at the 4-minute mark, and then I'll begin with the class. So if you're here now, please let me know in the live chat you're here, please. Thank you very much. If you're here, let me know. It's a great day today. As you can see, the sun is shining. Praise the Lord. Amen. Okay, soon to rise is here. Thanks for being here, man. 4-minute mark is 1.5 minutes already, so we have 2.5 more minutes to go. This live stream may be 1 hour and a half because I'm going to discuss a lot of stuff. All right. So bear with me also. Good. And by the way, while I'm making this live stream, the Afghanistan situation may develop. It's still developing. It's still working out. So by the time I'm done with this live stream, other stuff may already have happened, or by the time you watch this live streams as a playback. So this is a moment in time that I'm analyzing this Afghanistan situation. So, all right. So you know that. So I may need to make another live stream in the future with updates. So just so you know. Okay. Still not a 4-minute mark, so I'm just going to wait till it's 4 minutes. The Lord is good. Okay. And by the way, I want you to do the following. If you can do it, because maybe you can't. If you're on a computer or on a laptop, you can still hear the live chat, the live stream I mean. Pick up a map of Afghanistan, or go to Google Maps and look at and type in Afghanistan, so you can get it for you. For the first few, I just want you to look at the map of Afghanistan visually right now. While you're listening to me, you don't have to see it for a few seconds. Just do that, please. I'll tell you why you have to do that later on. Meanwhile, there's some ducks here again. There are many here today. Some of them are doves, I can see also. And there are fowls over here. Okay. A few more seconds and I'll begin. Okay, it's 4-minute mark. Okay, Afghanistan. It's a country in what we call Central Asia. Some say South Asia, but officially it's part of Central Asia. It's a landlocked country, so they don't have access to sea. There's another thing you need to know about it. The landscape of the country, let me say this, it's quite mountainous. You don't have that many rivers here and there. You don't. And you have one economic center, that's Kabul in the east, where you also have the capital. And Kabul is close to the border with Pakistan, because Kabul is also close to the Pakistani capital, Islamabad. Islam is the dominant religion over there. You also have other religions, of course, but Islam is the dominant one. And Afghanistan used to be a kingdom with a king. The king was overthrown and the region is stabilized. This happened in the 1970s. You can look it up for yourself. Well, it was during the oil crisis that was going on back then, but that's another topic. And you had those Islamic groups that were competing to take over. And there was a time the Soviet Union wanted to take over, but well, it didn't work out. Let me keep it nice to the former Soviet Union. It didn't work out. Okay. Now, before all of this, during the colonial era, the British Empire wanted to include the region of Afghanistan into their empire of India, but eventually this was left behind because it would be an administrative burden, so they left it like that. So, and Afghanistan is also known as the graveyard of empires. Why? Because that area is quite difficult to conquer, militarily speaking. But anyway, that's a little of a background about Afghanistan. As the story goes, on the 11th of September 2001, you had the Twin Towers crashing, also Building 7, but people don't talk about that. The Pentagon was attacked also. And there was this link made with this guy, Osama bin Laden, who so-called was in Afghanistan. And for some reason, George W. Bush, together with his puppet masters, agreed that it was necessary to invade Afghanistan to replace the so-called tyranny of the Taliban and to put in democracy and to build a stable country. And you had the allies of the United States, the United Kingdom, that is Britain, the Netherlands. The Netherlands is kind of kissing the ass of the United States anyway, but okay, the Netherlands, you had France, Germany, many more joined them. The European Union as a union also became active, not on a military level, but okay. So, as the story goes, for 2 decades, for 1 generation, been fighting there, and eventually on the 15th of August, the Taliban, that remained dormant for a while, took over, and yesterday, the United States of America left the country officially, and the war in Afghanistan ended, well, at least for the side of the West. Other countries stopped evacuations earlier, and still you have Western nationals left behind there, including people that helped out the West. Now, we've watched these things unfold past weeks, and there is one thing about this situation that people have not addressed. And as an anthropologist and sociologist, and someone with knowledge of economic history and colonial history, I'm thinking, why didn't anyone address this? Let me tell you what it is. Afghanistan is a landlocked country, okay? So they don't have access to sea. Landlocked countries are in a disadvantage because they don't have access to sea, because most of the trade, most of the commerce is transported through sea. Not through the air, through sea. So that's why most capitals of most countries are near the sea or at a river that connects them to the sea. As simple as that. Even within, let me say, the United States is a region that operates as a country. That's why it's called a union, okay? It's a union of 50 independent countries that operate as one unity. That's the United States. The United States is a region. And within the United States, you have regional economies. You have the Great Lakes region, you have the Midwest, you have the New England region. So you have several of those states working together to stabilize their economy. So the United States is a region that operates as that also has sub-regions that keeps it going. The United States is one big regional project. That's what the United States is. Now, the European Union is also a regional cooperation, but it's not a regional cooperation that acts as a country. The United States, however, acts as a country. That's the difference. And besides the United States and European Union, you also have ASEAN, the Southeast Asian Union, which is a loose union, but it still functions as a union. Now, you also have the Central American Union, SICA, it's called in Spanish. That's abbreviation. Sistema de Integración de Centroamérica, something like that. You also have Mercosur in South America. And even within the EU, yet sub-region like the Benelux, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg working together. You also have the Visegrad, that is, I believe, Hungary and Poland. And also, I'm not sure if Czechia is part of it, but anyway. So, regional cooperations are necessary to have stable economies. And during the colonial era, the Western Empire established regional entities. Some of them still survive to this day as countries like India, right? Or Brazil. So, what I'm heading towards is that regional integration of a landlocked country or a landlocked administration is the first thing you do to stabilize that country. Because they don't have access to sea, they need to have better relationships with others around them. As simple as that. So my question became, how could it be that despite all of the colonial and imperial history, despite all of the regional projects that are going on in the world right now, why is that nobody discussed the regional integration of Afghanistan? It's a landlocked country. So it should have been obvious that you have to integrate it in a regional economy. But where are the regional projects of Afghanistan, or that include Afghanistan? Past 20 years, I haven't heard anything about those. If I'm wrong, you can correct me, you can email me about it. Because look, an area like a country like Afghanistan that consists out of several tribes with rivalry, you have to enforce nation building, and the number one thing you do in nation building, that is establishing a central and stable economy. And if the country is landlocked, you need to integrate it in a region. Look, there are even countries with access to sea that have to regionally integrate, let alone a landlocked country. So, you cannot have a stable country without a stable economy, and if a country is landlocked, you can't have a stable economy without regional integration. This is something the United States should have known. Why? Because the United States is a region, it operates as a country. And the United States also has regional economies within the Union. So the United States is a region with regional economies that form this big region that functions as a country. That's the United States. So how come that the United States, which is a regional economy itself, how can they not realize we need to integrate this Afghanistan into the region? Oh, it's close to Pakistan, so you know what, let's integrate the economy of Afghanistan with Pakistan. Let's make a deal over here. Or, you know what? Afghanistan is also close in Central Asia. You know what? Let's talk to the Central Asian countries, Tajikistan, for example, or Kyrgyzstan, or those other, Uzbekistan. Let's talk to those countries, or Kazakhstan. Let's see what we can achieve here to include Afghanistan. Oh, to integrate Afghanistan regionally, we must develop economic relevancy. So you know what? Let's build railways. let's expand and urbanize the towns. Let's expand the towns and urbanize them. So hire people from neighboring countries, if necessary, to come and build things up. And then educate Afghani people to keep it going. Make sure they have a better infrastructure by building railways, better roads. Also, build more institutions. This could have been accomplished within just 3 years. And then the country would be more attractive to trade with and to be involved with. And the regional integration would happen swiftly. And it wasn't only the United States. You had various countries invested over there. You had the Dutch that were there. By the way, they divided Afghanistan in several zones. You had, I believe, an Italian zone, a German zone, also a Dutch zone, I believe, and a French zone. You can look it all up. Spain was involved there, Norway was involved, Australia was involved. So, with all those Western countries involved, the improvement of the infrastructure, as well as the regional integration, should have happened in less than 3 years. Because you had all that money and all that equipment coming over there. And from the very start, the Taliban wasn't even that powerful anymore. The Taliban was shut down. So the Taliban was not even a threat anymore to make the country more economically relevant. So what was going on? They occupied the country. There were many refugees. They installed this puppet government that was on the payroll of the United States. Okay, but what happened to the regional development? Oh, hold on. Regional development? Mr. Dossett, what are you talking about, regional development? Yes, you right said, regional development. What happened to regional development? No, they didn't do any of that. So, this cannot be accounted for. This cannot be justified. The fact alone that nobody even emphasized regional development and regional integration of the country, that shows you that they were not serious about improving the fate of the Afghani people. They say there was humanitarian intervention. Get out of here. If it was humanitarian intervention, you would not install a puppet government that you pamper with salaries. If it was regional development, you would intervene, shut down the military threat, and once military is shut down, you immediately discuss the economic future of the people with the stakeholders of the community, and by doing that, things become better. So, either the United States and their allies were completely clueless, they just entered in, and yep, here we are, and they had no clue what to do, or they had an extremely unrealistic expectation that they refused to give up, so they were delusional, or they intended to pamper Afghanistan from the start to keep them inadequate and to sabotage their own recovery. Because that situation didn't just fall out of the sky. 20 years, and now the same group you were fighting as terrorists, now you need to negotiate with them for your own citizens that you left behind. Look, the reason I'm making this live stream is because I'm emphasizing something that many people didn't catch. And I'm an anthropologist and I'm a sociologist. I do both. From an anthropological viewpoint, the strategy of the West in Afghanistan was a big joke. You cannot arrive in a landlocked nation that consists out of several tribes in rivalry. And you just arrive out of the blue and expect the public to just cry and fall down for you as if you're some celebrity that arrived. I mean, what do those Western powers expect? What powers? What do those Western countries expect? They would just jump in and the public would be crying for democracy? What? All right? And from a sociological point of view, this strategy was doomed to fail. Look, when Africa decolonized, and those African states that the British, French, German, Italian, and Portuguese and Spanish empires established, when those administrations became independent, for example, now you have Ghana, Togo, Nigeria, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, when all those administrations became independent, in the beginning they were struggling because you had many tribes just lumped together in administrations. And now the British, the French, and those administrators left, and now they had to figure it out on their own. So of course it went wrong. There were civil wars in Africa, armed conflicts, and while all this was going on, there were philanthropists and charity organizations from the West offering to help out. But eventually, the Africans realized, hold on a minute, we are going through conflict right now. Part of the conflict was caused by the colonial past, but we can't keep being upset about that. We need to move on. So now we're moving on, want to figure things out, and these people so-called want to help us out, but they only want to pamper us with ease. But they're not actually investing in us. So a lot of African countries realize, no more charity. We don't do that over here. And look at Africa today. You have the African Union. And the African Union is a regional cooperation that consists out of smaller regions also. So Africa, which also has some landlocked countries, understood the importance of regional integration, and the Africans eventually resisted this, they resisted this false charity that actually sabotaged them, and by doing that, they improved. Yes, there are still issues in African countries, absolutely. Nevertheless, they have improved over time. Now, there were corrupt leaders in Africa. I'm not going to sugarcoat all of that, but still, regional integration understood it. So if even those African nations, which you call third world countries or developing nations, if even they understood the importance of regional integration, why didn't the people in the Afghani government or the Afghani elite realize this? Why didn't any of the Western, where did the occupiers, namely the West, also enforce this? So it isn't just the West. Also locally, in Afghanistan itself, something was off. I hope I'm wrong, but it seems as if the puppet government that the United States installed just wanted to fill their pockets with foreign aid without actually doing something on the long term for the people. I hope I'm wrong, but that's how it appears right now. It appears. I'm not saying it is. That's how it appears at the moment. You mean to tell me that you have African countries upon which the world looks down upon, they understood the importance of autonomy, self-investment as a collective, and regional cooperation? You mean to tell me that you have third world African countries who understood this, but the Afghani people didn't? Oh man. So, there's another thing I consider weird over here. According to some sources, there were over 300,000 troops, 300,000 men that were part of the military defense of Afghanistan. I'm not talking about the foreign troops, I'm talking about the Afghani military itself. 300,000. How can it be that you had 300,000? And by the way, Rotterdam over here has 600,000 inhabitants. You have 300,000 inhabitants. Let me say 200,000 in the military defense of Afghanistan. 300,000 who are the troops. I call them inhabitants because they were part of the military defense. How come that 300,000 didn't manage within years to shut down this, what they call a terror group that they consider cavemen? So 300,000 Western-style trained soldiers could not defeat some cavemen? Hold on. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe because I just turned 30, I don't have enough life experience to understand this, but hold on a minute. 300,000 native people in the military. And you also have thousands of foreign troops standing behind them, supporting them. Thousands of soldiers, well trained and experienced from other countries, supplying them with weapons, with armor, and with advice, and with intelligence. And they couldn't eradicate this caveman cult that they call the Taliban? Hold on. That is something my brain will not accept. That is something my mind will not fall for. No. Don't tell me that nonsense. I'm not going to fall for it. Look, based on proof of the situation, we can conclude that the only way that caveman cult that they call the Taliban, the only way they could have survived and thrived was because the public was in on it too. Now, I'm not saying that all the Afghani people are secret supporters of the Taliban. No, get out of here. I'm not saying that, because many Afghani people fled Afghanistan as refugees. I know some of them also, so I'm not saying that. However, you cannot deny that the Taliban had everything against them, logistically, militarily, financially, economically, and still they could survive 20 years and just take over within a week. And by the way, the Taliban now have their own special forces. The weapons left behind by the United States and their allies are now used by the Taliban. Now they have their own special units operative over there. Okay, this reminds me of that other group called Daesh or ISIS that was operating in northern Syria, northern of Iraq. Okay, you had 60,000 Syrian troops, 60,000, and only 1,800 ISIS fighters. This is another conflict, but so let me get this straight. You had, you could say, 900 core fighters for this group that was ISIS, okay? 900, and the rest were foreigners that joined them. New recruits, okay? So you mean to tell me that 60,000 Syrian soldiers could not have dealt with 1,800 rebels who were hiding in the desert. And look at this. Those 60,000 Syrian soldiers also had military backup from Russia. Hold on. So you have Russia as an ally that backs you up, and you have 60,000 soldiers. Yet 1,800 men with a few guns and knives can defeat all of you. No. But then they forget to tell you that many of the Syrian soldiers deserted. They fled into Europe. They left their families, that means their wives and children, their parents, everyone behind. They just fled. And because so many Syrian soldiers fled, that's how ISIS could take over much territory. Because you had a lot of abandoned families that the ISIS members took in their care. And that's how they grew so quickly. And that's why mainstream media, till this day, cannot explain how ISIS grew so quickly and how they became so successful. Now you know why. Now you know why. Because they don't want to tell you that many of those Syrian soldiers became cowards and just fled. Now, not all of them, absolutely not. The warlords stood and fought over there, but many of them fled, and because many of them fled, ISIS could just easily do their thing. I dare to say that even ISIS was shocked, thinking, what? They just flee? We can just do this so that easily? Yes, that's what happens. And when people all over the world noticed the cowardice many of those men, a lot of folks got sympathy for their ideology, yet many people joining ISIS from all over the world. Because if those Syrian soldiers all would have stayed with backup from Russia, ISIS would have been done within just a week or two. Well, similar to the situation of ISIS, you can look at this situation over here. Either those 300,000 soldiers, Afghan soldiers, never existed, and just a number they made up. So it's a hoax, so they didn't have all military strength, or it is the way it is, and there were people in on it. It can be that many people in the population realize, hold on a minute, the Americans, the British, the Dutch, all those white countries have been here for so long, they haven't accomplished anything. Well, you know what? Maybe those cavemen have a point. I think this sentiment grew in the population, and that's why eventually the Taliban was able to succeed so quickly. 20 years of military intervention. I believe it was $2 trillion they invested in it. Thousands of soldiers died over there in fights. Tens of thousands became wounded. All of that, and that caveman cult could take over in just a week. Oh, and look at this, the president of Afghanistan fled. Many of the government officials fled also. So they just deserted their own country and handed over to the same enemy they've been fighting for 20 years. All I'm saying over here is that not all the Afghani people are the victims here. There are many of them in on this thing. And those people who are in on it, they just drained the military and financial strength of the United States and other Western countries, just so they can later use all this military and financial strength to benefit that caveman cult. That's how simple it is. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong. I'm willing to be corrected. Prove me wrong if I'm wrong. So, what can we learn from this Afghanistan controversy? What we learn from this is that not all worldly people are stupid. I mean, that caveman called the Taliban, as well as the people who secretly supported them, they eventually didn't openly fight the United States nor other countries. They just drained them by sabotaging stuff, and eventually this humiliated and embarrassed the Western world and the Western values. So eventually, within a few years, these people have to be gone. And when they're about to leave, it's going to be chaotic because there'll be so much pressure and humiliation on them. And that's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. Don't even talk about the fact that they left their equipment and weapons behind. Equipment that includes computers, that includes technology, that includes tools, weapons. Well, we know what weapons are. Equipment is also helicopters and all of that. So they left equipment and weapons and documentation. So reports with confidential information, they left all of that was left behind. And now that caveman cult just came in, took it all. And now they have their own special forces using the equipment left behind. So if they could form the special forces, the special unit in their own military with equipment left behind, it means that there was a lot of equipment, a lot of weapons were left behind. So some may ask, if this was planned, why did they do it? Let me tell you, I'm not saying they plan to do this, because then we'll say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, Rashid. Even though there is evidence that suggests that they planned to abandon Afghanistan like this. But okay, the thing that tells me why they abandoned Afghanistan on purpose like this was because of a cultural reason. The Western values failed. And I believe, I can be wrong, okay? But I believe that the reason why they left everything behind in such a chaotic way is because their values failed. Those people thought, hey, we are the Western world, the former colonial powers. White supremacy thought, hey, we are going to enforce democracy and teach the world a lesson that democracy is the way. Okay, they came in. They expected to just come in and that the public would scream for them like a pop star. They expected deep love and devotion from the public. It didn't happen. There was resistance amongst the public. So they stayed because they thought with our force and our violence would convince the people to love and embrace democracy. No, it didn't happen. And meanwhile, yet a lot of collateral damage, families, including children being killed by bombings and all of that. So you also had those soldiers that committed crimes like raping people and killing people for sport. That also happens, even though they want to talk about those war crimes. But those war crimes were committed. So instead of tricking the public into falling in love with democracy, they bred the resentment in the crowds, and the resentment backfired. And now they have to negotiate with the same group, with the same cavemen they started the fight 20 years ago. So the superpower called the United States of America, with the Western world behind them, the first world, as they call it, they have to give in to cavemen. They've been fighting for 20 years. This is because culturally they failed. If democracy and women's rights and all those values were obviously superior, then why would the public resist it? So, I'm not saying that You shouldn't invest in the improvement of the fate of women. I'm not talking about that. But what the West calls women's rights is a political agenda, it's a feminist agenda. That was one of the excuses they had for being there, was to enforce that feminist agenda. If this feminist agenda was so superior, so beneficial for the public, why was there so much resistance? Why? Explain that to me. Oh, they can't explain it. Because if they have to explain it, they have to admit that those values they claim are superior aren't really that superior. It goes like this. If someone is fighting you and you lose, they've proven a point. They've won, you've lost. But if someone challenges you and they want to put you in your place, but they never succeed in putting you in your place because you keep on surviving and coming back, what's this do to the people fighting you? It exhausts them, it frustrates them, it causes them to radicalize, they go into blind rage, and once this happens, they expose themselves and they crash. So, the Taliban and their supporters in Afghanistan, they used endurance as a weapon to exhaust the Western world. That's what they've done. So instead of going full on and kept fighting them, they just endured. They didn't submit and didn't fight, they just endured. And their endurance exposed the hidden motives and the weakness and the contradiction of the West. Now, by the way, I'm not siding with the Taliban or whatever, absolutely not, because they're not serving Christ, so I cannot side with them. And well, they don't even have a message of peace directly for the whole world, including for black folks. So I'm not really I'm not choosing this side. Anyway, I'm not doing that. I'm not choosing any side here. I'm just giving an analysis of the situation based on proof. So, the fact alone that they didn't come with a plan to economically integrate Afghanistan into a region with other countries, that alone should have told you that they intended to use Afghanistan as an excuse to distract people from the other issues that were going on. And their exploitation backfired on them. And now worldwide are humiliated. Oh, and look at this. Many extremist organizations exist. They do. There are extremist organizations out there, and people have sympathy with those extremist organizations. Now, those extremist organizations now, they will recognize themselves in the victory of the Taliban. Because I have to call this a victory. It may be a short-lived victory, we don't know, but it's still a victory. That they were the ones giving the terms to the United States. You're going to leave before the 31st of August 2021. The fact that now the West has to beg them to treat women better, that's a victory. So I'm telling you, more extremist groups throughout the world feel vindicated by this. And by feeling vindicated by this, they now have extra strength as motivation to act out their ideals. So what's expected is, I hope I'm wrong, but what we can expect coming years is that extremist groups all over the world are going to say, hey, if they could do it by being strategic, let's learn from their strategy and let's put it in practice. So not only has the West been humiliated, the backfire goes so deep that the violence will afflict them for coming generations. And you have many Western people themselves who might even join those extremist groups because they don't want to participate in the public humiliation. And also, think about all those lives, all those soldiers. They died for a cause that was lost from the start. Tens of thousands are wounded They are missing fingers, missing hands, missing legs. Some have became paralyzed, some became blind or deaf. So all those thousands of wounded veterans. Oh Lord. This humiliation goes very deep. This humiliation is causing the Western world to turn on each other. You already have bitter resentment towards the United States from the United Kingdom. Within the United States, the divide between liberals and conservatives is going to grow. So, this is just the start of social unrest and social conflict. So, didn't Jesus tell us those that live by the sword shall die by the sword? Yet, for some reason, the Western world, who claims to follow Christian values, wants to keep using the sword as a method of achieving things in life. Oh well, guess they have to learn it the hard way, or not. Maybe they don't learn it and they just perish. That's on them. To me, this is just a proof how white supremacist pride and arrogance is backfiring on them. So, hey, I'm not saying that all the soldiers that participated in Afghanistan were white supremacists, no. But the white supremacist structure that caused all that mess is now falling apart because everything's backfiring on them. Worse than with Vietnam, much worse. Okay, so those that live by the sword shall die by the sword. Christ taught us this. All right? So, again, those that live by the sword shall die by the sword. When you operate in violence, you operate in the negative. You operate in darkness. And when you operate in darkness, you are stuck in a cycle. And people can use the cycle against you. That's why you will never win when you use violence. You won't. You'll never win with violence because violence keeps you stuck in a cycle of negativity. And this cycle of negativity is something you'll get used to. And because you're used to it, you're now invested in negativity. And once you're invested in negativity, either you become a reprobate or you become mentally defective. And in that condition, anyone can trigger you and take advantage of you. And that's what happened to the West. And by the way, someone talks about initiation into adulthood. That's a whole nother topic. Again, when you leave comments, let it be related to the topic, please. Initiation into adulthood is something completely different, and that I will talk about later. But it's an interesting topic you've mentioned. So, live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. So, we as believers, we don't believe in violence, and we do not chase the short-term relief that violence offers. Violence only gives short-term relief. And the short-term relief will exhaust you and backfire on you. Now, I'm not saying that caveman cult didn't use violence, but eventually they dropped the violence for a while and they endured. And their endurance gave them more benefits than if they would have just fought or escalated openly. Now, I'm not saying they're not using violence right now, that they have a leverage. Of course they are. It's a worldly organization. Of course they do. But they've learned that endurance is endurance in a practical way. Endurance is not just surrender to abuse and be killed or be victimized. That's not endurance. Endurance means you persist to remain alive and survive no matter how difficult it is. That's endurance. And by the way, Jesus taught us to endure until the end. Because during his lifetime, you will face tribulation. But with the resurrection power, you can overcome tribulation. All right? So, to learn from this Afghanistan controversy, learn from this, and do not copy that pagan Christian attitude that the West has. They say it's humanitarian intervention, but they use violence as their main tool to achieve humanitarian improvement. It's pagan Christian, combining paganism with the gospel. It cannot work. Walk by faith, obey the gospel. Instead of violence, use real power, real resurrection power. That's what we need as believers. Now, you can pray for the believers in Afghanistan if you want. You can also pray that this situation works out for the believers, but don't pray on behalf of this world for things to go well with them, because things can only go well with them if they obey Christ, and it just won't do this. And by the way, similar to happened to the West will also happen to you when you don't operate in practical wisdom in this lifetime. Let's keep it with you now. Those difficulties and issues, or those enemies you encounter in daily life, they should be fleeing from you when you walk by faith. The reason why many of your enemies, that includes bad situations, don't flee from you is because you're not walking in the resurrection power, because you keep holding on to your own thoughts, your manners, boundaries, morals, ethics. You hold on to so much things, so much baggage that Christ didn't give you, and that's why you don't have victory in life. Don't be a pagan Christian. Don't combine the darkness of the world with the gospel. Walk fully in the light. That's when the resurrection power will flow through you and you'll overcome. Anything else will just be short-term relief with side effects. Short-term relief. Now, are there any questions about this topic? Let me know now in the live chat, please. Thank you very much. I'll wait for one more minute. If I don't get a question in a minute, I'll close on the live stream. Let's see. Hold on. All right, still no questions. All right, I didn't get any questions, so thanks for being here. Remember to join the Google Photos album so that you can fellowship with others when I'm not online. Keep agreeing with Christ, learn from this controversy, and I'll see you next time. Be at peace.